Welcome, brave souls, to another chilling episode of our scary stories. I am your host, guiding you through the shadowed alleyways of fear and suspense. Tonight, we journey beneath a blood-red moon, a celestial body turned sinister. Each star above us hides a story, a chilling tale that hovers on the edge of our nightmares. Fasten your seatbelts, hold your breath, and plunge headlong into the abyss of fear as we unravel the terrifying tale titled The Moon's Children. Remember, dear listeners, some stories are not for the faint of heart. In the silent belly of the night, Dr. Orion Wolf perched like a lone sentinel in his remote observatory, nestled amidst the rocky embrace of an anonymous mountain range. Orion had always relished his solitude, away from the frenetic pace of civilization. Surrounded by the stark ink-black sky, the constellations were his companions, and the soft, metallic hum of the telescope was his lullaby. The moon, a pearl in the cosmic velvet, began to shroud itself in an unnerving hue. As if bleeding into the lunar surface, the red tinge consumed the moon's pallor, giving birth to a chilling blood moon. Orion could feel the room temperature drop, the chill creeping up his spine as he bore witness to this celestial spectacle. The metallic scent of the cold mountain air filtered into the observatory, tinged with a note of dread. Down in the valley, nestled like a child in the mountain's lap, lay the sleepy town of Haven. A pinprick of civilization surrounded by wilderness. Its quaint charm was now veiled under the unsettling glow of the moon, casting long, monstrous shadows. Each rustling leaf echoed a sense of impending doom, the wind whispering eerie tales in the silent night. The once comforting scent of pine was now mixed with the faint taint of fear, palpable in the cool night air. Throughout the world, people turned their gazes upward, drawn to the haunting spectacle. In New York, Tokyo, and Paris, the skyscrapers became teeth in the gaping maw of the transformed moon. A collective shudder seemed to ripple through humanity, a primal anxiety awakening in response to the blood-red lunar phenomenon. In Haven, restless dreams haunted the townsfolk. Hank, the jovial baker, tossed in his bed, his dreams plagued by a grotesque figure with an unsettling grin, mirroring his usually cheerful demeanor. Across the road, Agnes, the elderly librarian, was tormented by a monstrous reflection of her usually prim and proper self, twisted into a nightmarish caricature. The chilling transformation reflected their darkest insecurities, painting their dreams with terror. Orion watched the red moon, his mind echoing the world's collective unease. Yet, as a scientist, his curiosity tugged at him, pulling him towards the terrifying unknown. He caught a glimpse of his reflection on the observatory's glass wall. His usual calm demeanor stared back, but the eyes were hollow, as if they bore the weight of the haunting spectacle unfolding above. The air felt electric, the hairs on his neck standing up as if he were a conductor for the unnerving energy that the blood moon exuded. There was an insidious beauty to the crimson moon. It felt as if the celestial body was bearing its soul, bleeding out its secrets for those brave enough to look. The wind outside seemed to howl in a mournful tune, echoing the moon's silent cry, a chilling serenade to the unearthing of hidden horrors. Orion's breath fogged up the glass, obscuring his reflection. As he wiped it away, his heart pounded like a drum in his chest, echoing through the silent observatory. The moon, now a looming red orb in the sky, seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. A symphony of dread and anticipation played in the theater of the night, the audience of stars bearing witness to the prologue of a terrifying narrative. And so, under the blood-red moon, the stage was set. The world held its breath, the veil of normality torn asunder, ready to plunge into an odyssey through their darkest fears. Little did they know that Dr. Orion Wolf would be their reluctant shepherd, guiding them through the coming ordeal, his solitude shattered by the weight of impending doom. The blood moon continued its rise, bathing the world in its dread-filled luminescence, and Orion couldn't shake off a primal instinct in his gut. He was standing at the precipice of something ancient, something dark, and most importantly, something that was just beginning. The observatory, once a fortress of solitude, felt increasingly like the epicenter of a global quake. The clock on the wall ticked away, a steadfast beat amidst the eerie silence. It was a familiar melody, now underscored with a chilling overtone that the blood-red moon cast. The moon's transformation continued in a silent, horrifying crescendo, pouring an unsettling glow over the world. Orion stared at the phenomenon through the massive telescope, the metallic taste of fear filling his mouth. His heart throbbed against his rib cage, a wild creature trying to escape, its rhythm an unsettling counterpoint to the solemn ticking of the clock. Outside, the town of Haven cowered under the red moon's watchful eye, the quaint streets and houses bathed in an otherworldly hue. The familiar scent of earth and dew was now intertwined with a sense of dread. The wind blew softly, its mournful sighs rustling the leaves and casting monstrous shadows that danced on the sides of buildings. As the town slumbered, a nightmare began to weave itself into reality. Hank, the baker, awoke with a start, gasping for breath. His heart pounded against his chest, a rapid drumbeat echoing his fear. His reflection in the mirror made his blood run cold. It was him, but twisted. His usual cheery face was contorted into a grotesque, unsettling grin. He was a nightmarish caricature of himself. Across town, Agnes woke with a shudder. The mirror revealed her transformation. Her once neat and tidy appearance was replaced by a monstrous version of herself, her prim demeanor now a frightening mask of chaos. The sight was a silent scream in the quiet of her home. Their transformations were not isolated. A dreadful metamorphosis touched all under the moon's blood-red glow, turning them into grotesque versions of their shadow selves. Haven, once a sanctuary, was now a gallery of living nightmares. Back in the observatory, Orion, wrestling with his fear, turned from the telescope to face his own reflection in the glass. His breath hitched as he took in the sight. His calm demeanor had given way to a monstrous form, a distorted mirror image of his deepest fears. His reflection, a being born of lunar mystery, stared back with hollow eyes. Each heartbeat felt like a thunderclap in his ears. His skin prickled, and he could almost taste the metallic tinge of his fear. The sight of his transformation was a blow, but it was the realization of what it meant that shook him to his core. The monstrous versions of themselves weren't some external imposition. They were the embodiments of their own fears and insecurities, given form under the blood-red moon. The dread that had been simmering within Orion now bubbled over, his breath coming in short gasps. He was not just a witness to this terrifying spectacle. He was an unwilling participant. In the midst of the growing terror, a flicker of the scientist within him clung to rationality. He grabbed his notebook, his hand shaking as he began to document the unfolding phenomena. But as he looked once more at his monstrous reflection, he couldn't shake off the terrible feeling that they were only at the precipice of the horror that the blood-red moon was unveiling. The true depth of the terror that awaited them was yet to unfold. As the unsettling scarlet glow of the moon bled into the observatory, Orion sat huddled in a corner, furiously scribbling in his notebook. His scientific mind, like a beacon in the tempest of fear, sought answers within ancient tomes and modern texts. The echoes of the monstrous transformation outside the observatory mingled with the rustle of pages and the scratching of his pen against the paper. With the moon as his only company, he delved into a labyrinth of myths and legends, ancient scrolls, and astronomical records, seeking a semblance of understanding in the cryptic symbols and age-old tales. Each line he read was a step deeper into the dark alley of forgotten lore, where the boundary between reality and legend blurred. A series of ancient lunar myths caught his attention. Stories told by civilizations from millennia past, from the Mayans to the Maoris, spoke of the moon's transformative power. Their tales hinted at an unworldly energy that, when in alignment with certain celestial events, could mirror the fears and insecurities of humans, making them a living nightmare. The details were vague, the translations shaky, yet the common thread was unmistakable. The moon had played this dreadful game before, casting its red pallor over Earth, reducing mankind to monstrous reflections of their darkest selves. The fear, the nightmares, they were not new. They were echoes from a dreadful chorus sung by humanity under a similar blood-red moon, centuries ago. Orion then made a peculiar discovery. The transformations seemed only to affect those who stood under the moon's direct gaze. Those hidden from the lunar light appeared to be spared the monstrous transformation, an observation that aligned with the experiences of Hank and Agnes. A sharp chill ran down his spine as he pieced together the horrifying puzzle. The moon, often a symbol of serene beauty, had become a stage for humanity's worst fears to play out their parts. Yet, there was an intriguing undercurrent to this monstrous symphony. It wasn't an indiscriminate horror, it was somehow connected to the individual's psyche. This nightmarish mirror showed not what you were, but what you feared you could become. With a glimmer of understanding, Orion's gaze shifted from the ancient texts to the blood-red moon. He could feel his heart hammering in his chest, a desperate drum echoing through the quiet observatory. Fear and fascination entwined in a grotesque dance, pulling him further into the mystery. However, even as he sought answers, Orion was not prepared for what was to come. For each revelation only deepened the mystery, each piece of the puzzle revealing a picture more terrifying than the last. The truth, it seemed, was as elusive as the tranquility once offered by the night sky. Unbeknownst to him, as Orion sank deeper into the abyss of ancient lore and lunar mystery, the outside world, under the blood-red moon, continued its descent into madness. A horrifying symphony of transformation played on, a reminder of the dread that was yet to come. This chilling overture was far from over, and the main act of the blood-red moon's terrifying spectacle was just about to begin. Inside the observatory, the tranquil silence was shattered by a ticking clock, and a mind tumbling through the chaos of fear and revelation. Orion's eyes were bloodshot, exhaustion tugging at his senses, but fear and curiosity held sleep at bay. His solitary quest for answers had brought him face to face with a chilling reality. The moon was but a stage, and their fears the actors in a terrifying nocturne. With a hesitant hand, Orion reached out to draw back the heavy curtain that shrouded the large observatory window. He felt a primal fear crawl up his spine as the blood-red moonlight spilled into the room, casting elongated shadows that danced like nightmarish marionettes. He took a deep breath, the cold air filling his lungs, laced with a taste of terror. It was time for Orion to brave the moonlit stage, to face the nightmarish reflection of himself. He'd realized that understanding this phenomenon was not just about poring over ancient texts, but about immersing himself into its terrifying depth. It was his turn to dance with the moon's shadow, his turn to transform. As he stepped into the lunar glow, he felt a shiver run through him, an invisible hand pulling at his very essence. He steeled himself, gritting his teeth against the crawling sensation under his skin, his heartbeat echoing like a war drum in his ears. His eyes drifted towards the polished surface of the observatory's metallic walls, serving as mirrors reflecting the dread-filled tableau. He watched in horrified fascination as his familiar figure warped. His features twisted, his calm demeanor giving way to something monstrous. His eyes sank into his face, replaced by hollow sockets that radiated an unholy glow. His skin turned an ashen gray, a stark contrast to the blood-red world outside. The transformation was painful, a million tiny needles pricking at his very soul. But amid the fear and pain, a scientist's mind observed, cataloging each terrifying detail, each wave of change that washed over him. Orion could feel his fears taking shape, his insecurities molding him into a nightmarish caricature. It was as if the moon had ripped open the dark corners of his mind, spilling his deepest fears into the world. He was no longer just Dr. Orion Wolf, the solitary astronomer. He was a living embodiment of his hidden dread. Yet, amidst the horror, there was a perverse sense of clarity. His transformation was a grotesque mirror, showing him not what he was, but what he feared he could become. It was a terrifying yet enlightening realization. Outside, the once tranquil town of Haven echoed with a symphony of transformation. The chilling wails and gasps, the rustling leaves, and the howling wind were a testament to the terror that had befallen under the blood-red moon. In the observatory, as Orion wrestled with his monstrous form, he found a grim resolve. He might be a victim, a reluctant participant in this horrifying spectacle, but he was also humanity's hope. His solitude had been shattered, replaced by a crushing responsibility. He stood tall, an embodiment of terror, yet a beacon in the unfolding nightmare. A blood-red moon continued its spectral dance across the sky, its light revealing the monsters lurking in the hearts of humanity. Orion Wolf, the astronomer-turned-beast, was now their reluctant shepherd, guiding them into the dark night and hopefully through to the dawn. Bathed in the ghastly luminescence of the blood-red moon, Orion, now a monstrous reflection of his fears, stepped out of the observatory. The nocturnal chill caressed his transformed skin, carrying the distinct scent of pine interwoven with an undertone of dread. Each creaking branch and rustling leaf whispered of the unseen horrors that the town of Haven was living under the moon's dreadful spectacle. His footsteps echoed against the gravel path leading from the observatory to the town. With each step, he felt a strange dualism, the fear of what he had become juxtaposed against a morbid curiosity that drew him towards Haven. He was a scientist, an observer, but tonight, he was a part of the fearful narrative that was unfolding. In the heart of Haven, the transformation had touched all. The quaint houses, once a symbol of warmth and community, were now shrouded under the red glow, casting monstrous shadows that danced with fear and uncertainty. The familiar homes now seemed alien, distorted under the blood-red moon, mirroring the transformations of their inhabitants. He came upon the baker, Hank, his jolly features warped into an unsettling, grotesque grin. Hank's large frame shook with fear, his monstrous eyes reflecting the dread of his transformation. Yet, as Orion approached, he saw something unexpected. There was a glimmer of recognition, a flicker of the old Hank in those fearful eyes. Down the road, Agnes stood outside the library, her prim and proper appearance replaced by a nightmarish caricature of disorder. Yet, as she looked at Orion, he saw not just a monster. He saw Agnes, the ever-resilient librarian, her spirit flickering behind her transformed visage. As Orion moved through Haven, he observed a strange reality. Each grotesque form he encountered carried the unique fears and insecurities of the person it had transformed from. But they were not entirely lost to their monstrous forms. Inside each horror was a flicker of humanity, a testament to the spirit that refused to be consumed. Orion felt a strange camaraderie with them. They were all victims of the same cosmic spectacle, trapped in monstrous bodies, wading through a sea of fear. Yet the transformations had not consumed their spirit. They were grotesque, horrifying, yet human. A realization dawned upon him. The moon had turned them into monsters, but it did not control them. The monstrous forms were not a dictate, but a reflection. How they reacted, whether they succumbed to their monstrous instincts or held on to their humanity, was a decision they made, not the moon. His monstrous form mirrored his fears, yet he felt a stirring of determination within him. The transformation was external. It didn't have to dictate who he was. The real monsters were not out there but within, lurking in the shadows of their minds. As the red glow continued its vigil over Haven, Orion felt a surge of resolve. The blood-red moon had revealed the monstrous side of humanity, but it had also unveiled the indomitable human spirit. The world had fallen into a nightmarish abyss, but there was a glimmer of hope, a beacon amidst the enveloping dread. With newfound determination, Orion moved through Haven. He was a grotesque reflection of his fears, yet he was also a symbol of hope. The night was still young, and the full horror of the blood-red moon was yet to unfold. Orion Wolf, the reluctant shepherd, walked with purpose. The stage was set for humanity's darkest fears to play out, but the finale was still unwritten. Orion, despite his monstrous form, returned to his sanctuary amidst the stars, the observatory. It was there, bathed in the crimson glow of the moon, that his quest for answers found a new direction. The echo of ticking clock filled the otherwise silent room, a disquieting reminder of the relentless march of time. Drawing from his deep knowledge of celestial bodies, he considered the unique composition of the moon. Dusty regolith, basaltic plains, and mineral-rich highlands were familiar ground for any astronomer. However, the moon's current phenomenon suggested an unknown element at play, a mystery lurking within the lunar surface. A realization dawned upon him. If he could analyze lunar samples from previous space missions, he might unveil the secrets of the blood-red moon. He turned to the precious moon rocks locked away in the observatory vault, gifts from the bygone era of lunar explorations. Under the spectral light of the moon, Orion carefully examined each rock, his monstrous form strangely graceful in the delicate task. His fingers, once human, now skeletal, danced over the gray stones, tracing the history of the moon, and hopefully uncovering the key to their monstrous predicament. Hours slipped by as Orion scrutinized the rocks, his eyes straining under the eerie glow. There was something mesmerizing about holding a piece of another world, a world that now held them captive under a terrifying spell. His search led him to a peculiar stone, its surface shimmering in a pattern unfamiliar to him. As he looked closer, he noticed a mineral he hadn't seen before. It sparkled under the moonlight, a hidden gem amidst the gray lunar soil. Diving into a compendium of extraterrestrial minerals, Orion scoured the pages for a match. Hours bled into each other as he sought an answer in the depths of his extensive library. With dawn's approach, Orion found it, buried in an obscure research paper on lunar geology. The mineral was an extraterrestrial compound, previously deemed dormant and non-reactive. Yet, under the blood-red moon, it appeared to be far from dormant. The mineral was, in fact, reactive to certain wavelengths of light, wavelengths that were strikingly similar to the current glow of the moon. An unsettling realization chilled him to the bone. This mineral could be the missing link, the cause behind the terrifying lunar event, and the monstrous transformations. Exhaustion began to seep into his bones, yet Orion pressed on. As the world outside navigated the treacherous labyrinth of nightmares, it was up to him to unravel the secrets that the blood-red moon held close. His monstrous form, mirroring his deepest fears, hunched over the mineral samples. His fear was still present, gnawing at his resolve, but his determination was stronger. Orion Wolf, the scientist-turned-beast, was delving into a lunar mystery that hid a terrifying truth. The horror of the blood-red moon was far from over, and the darkest hour was yet to come. The blood-red moon, an ominous figure in the sky, continued to cast its eerie glow as Orion worked tirelessly in the observatory. His monstrous reflection on the polished surfaces was a constant reminder of the world's grim predicament. Yet, in this ghastly form, he sought hope, sought answers within a tiny fragment of lunar stone. His heart throbbed a restless rhythm against his chest, a syncopation of fear and resolve. The extraterrestrial mineral, shimmering under the moon's crimson light, whispered of an ancient story. It was more than a stone, it was a clue, a key to understanding the horrific transformations. Orion's mind spun, entangled in a web of scientific possibilities. The mineral, previously thought to be dormant, was reacting with the specific wavelength of the blood-red moon. This reaction, he theorized, could be causing the world to manifest their deepest fears and insecurities into monstrous forms. As the minutes ticked by, Orion began to see the transformation not as a curse, but as a twisted form of communication, a primal expression of human fears through the language of the cosmos. His skin, now a canvas of gray, bore the mark of his personal fears and insecurities. The quiet hum of the observatory, once a soothing background melody, was now punctuated by the raspy rhythm of his breathing. The scent of cold metal and musty old books filled the air, a sensory reminder of the strange, terrifying reality he was part of. He felt his body heavy with exhaustion, but the weight of discovery kept his mind alight. His monstrous form, while horrifying, gave him unique insight into the terror that gripped the world. He was not just an observer, he was a participant, entwined in the narrative spun by the blood-red moon. A chilling thought crossed his mind. If fear and insecurity were the threads of this terrifying tapestry, then confronting them could unravel it. Maybe the fight against their monstrous forms was not physical, but psychological, a battle waged within the human mind. As Orion grappled with his monstrous form, he realized that he was not just battling a transformation, he was confronting his deepest fears, his guilt and regret, his perceived inadequacies. And with each battle fought within, he felt a subtle shift. His reflection became less terrifying, less monstrous. His inner beast was not an invincible enemy, but a conquerable fear. In the heart of the nightmare, Orion found a glimmer of hope. Their transformation was not a death sentence. It was a twisted challenge, a call to confront the shadows within. The blood-red moon had forced them to face their monstrous fears, but it was up to them to fight back, to reclaim their humanity. Outside, the world was still a stage for the monstrous forms to dance under the crimson light. Yet, within the confines of the observatory, a new act was unfolding. The astronomer-turned-beast, Dr. Orion Wolf, was learning to master his transformation, becoming a beacon of hope amidst the enveloping terror. His journey was far from over, his battle just beginning, but he was no longer a reluctant participant. He was a warrior, ready to wrestle with the beast within. Within the observatory, under the watchful glow of the blood-red moon, Orion had evolved from a solitary observer to a key participant in the cosmic drama. His monstrous form was not just a symbol of fear, but a testament to an ongoing battle, a fight against his internal fears and guilt. His scientific mind, once thrown into a frenzy by the lunar event, now began to piece together the twisted puzzle. The extraterrestrial mineral, combined with the unique lunar light, had triggered the transformations. However, the manifestation of those transformations was driven by an internal process, a projection of their own fears and insecurities. The moon's transformation was not an act of chaos, but a distorted reflection of humanity's collective subconscious. The monstrous forms weren't a separate entity, but an unmasking, a revelation of the individual's internal struggle, their shadow selves. Orion had discovered that the shadows that lurked within them, the fears and insecurities they hid away, were now given a physical form. They weren't cursed, they were exposed. They were fighting not with external monsters, but internal demons given form under the eerie lunar light. Realization dawned on him. If the transformation was linked to their fears and insecurities, then confronting these feelings could counteract the transformation. The dread that had bound his heart loosened its grip. There was hope, a path to return to their human forms. The moon had revealed their monstrous side, but it had also illuminated a way to fight back. With newfound understanding, Orion felt an urgency to share his discovery. The world needed to know that the real battle was not against the monstrous forms, but against their own fears. The blood-red moon had shown them the power of their inner demons, but it was up to them to wield the power of their inner strength. In the heart of the observatory, under the sinister glow of the transformed moon, Dr. Orion Wolf became a bridge between scientific understanding and human fear. His monstrous form bore the weight of a heavy truth. The battle against the transformation was not to be fought in the world outside, but within the depths of their own minds. The fight against their monstrous forms was a call to face their inner fears, a challenge to accept their vulnerabilities. The world, draped under the ominous glow, was not just battling a lunar event. They were waging a war within, a fight to reclaim their humanity from the clutches of their fears and insecurities. The darkness of the night was far from over, and the full scale of the battle was yet to reveal itself. But amidst the dread and uncertainty, there was a flicker of hope, a path leading away from the monstrous shadows and into the comforting embrace of their true selves. Orion, the transformed astronomer, stood ready. The night was filled with horror, but the dawn held promise. The fight against the beast within was just beginning. With the observatory bathed in the chilling glow of the blood-red moon, Orion made preparations to deliver his newfound knowledge. The monstrous visage that stared back at him in the polished surfaces of the observatory was a grotesque mask hiding the fervent determination that resided within. He was no longer just a participant in this terrifying spectacle. He was a beacon of hope amidst the shadows. In the heart of Haven, the monstrous forms still roamed the town. Hank, his transformation reflecting a perversion of his usual jovial nature, was a grotesque caricature of joviality gone wrong. Agnes, the prim librarian, carried the weight of her monstrous form, her body a disturbing echo of her usual decorum. Orion knew he had to reach them to deliver the insight he'd unearthed from his research and his experience. The townsfolk, trapped in their own nightmares, needed to know the battle against their transformations was not physical but psychological. Bracing himself, Orion journeyed towards Haven. His monstrous form moved through the eerie landscape, each step a bold declaration of his resolve. The chilling wind whispered secrets through the rustling leaves, and the silence of the night was punctuated by distant cries of fear and confusion. Once in the town center, he let his monstrous voice echo through the streets, a guttural call slicing through the dread-filled silence. Gathering their attention was a challenge. They saw him as one of their own, another victim of the blood-red moon's terrifying spectacle. He relayed his understanding, his voice reverberating around the town. He spoke of the lunar mineral, the moon's transformation, and the manifestations of their fears and insecurities. He explained their monstrous forms were not a curse, but a reflection, a physical manifestation of their own internal demons. He urged them to confront their fears, to face the shadows lurking within their hearts. Their monstrous forms were not the true enemy. The real battle was within, a war against their deepest insecurities, their darkest fears. His message was met with a haunting silence, then whispers, and eventually a low murmur of conversations. The townsfolk began to understand the source of their transformations. Fear still held them, but confusion was replaced by understanding. The battle lines were drawn, not on the streets of Haven, but within the hearts and minds of its inhabitants. Orion returned to the observatory, leaving the town to grapple with their newfound understanding. The world was at the mercy of the blood-red moon, their monstrous forms a testament to their deepest fears. But now they had a weapon against the fear, understanding. As Orion climbed the hill back to the observatory, he felt a change in the air. The night was still haunted by the blood-red moon, but the town of Haven was no longer just a canvas for monstrous forms. It was a battleground for the hearts and minds of its people, a test of their inner strength against their fears. They were not victims, they were fighters. The final act was unfolding under the blood-red moon, and humanity was ready to face their fears. The observatory, once Orion's retreat into the calm of the stars, had become the heart of a cosmic conundrum. Within its walls, the astronomer turned beast held vigil, his eyes reflecting the menacing glow of the blood-red moon. His monstrous form, however, was now a symbol not of fear, but of defiance. Orion's message to the townsfolk had been met with understanding. The quiet town of Haven was now a crucible where each individual faced their deepest fears. Their transformations were a grotesque testament to their internal struggles, their bodies mirroring the very demons they fought within. Inside each house, a personal battle was being waged. Hank, once a friendly and jovial baker, stood in front of the mirror, his grotesque grin mocking his usual sunny demeanor. He confronted his own insecurities, the fear of losing his joy and becoming a hollow, grotesque version of himself. In her quiet library, Agnes, her prim and proper appearance replaced by an image of chaos and disorder, battled her own demons. Her fears of losing control of her life descending into chaos stared back at her through her monstrous form. She acknowledged her fear and confronted it. And so it was in every household in Haven. Each person, each grotesque transformation was a living monument to an internal battle, a fight against their fears and insecurities. Their monstrous forms were not a curse, but a mirror reflecting their internal struggles. As the night stretched on, a subtle change swept across Haven. The monstrous forms began to fade, their grotesque features softening. Hank's terrifying grin slowly returned to a gentle smile, and Agnes's disorderly form regained its primness. The town, under the blood-red moon, was slowly reclaiming its humanity. In the observatory, Orion, the reluctant shepherd of this terrifying journey, felt a change in himself too. His fears, his insecurities, were still a part of him, but they no longer controlled him. His monstrous form gradually receded, replaced by the calm, solitary figure of Dr. Orion Wolf, the astronomer. A blood-red moon still ruled the sky, but its reign of terror was diminishing. The monsters were retreating, their power over humanity dwindling. Orion and the townsfolk of Haven had not just survived the night, they had conquered their fears. They bore the scars of the battle, but they were no longer victims. They were survivors, warriors who had fought their inner demons and emerged victorious. As dawn approached, the blood-red moon began to fade, its spectral light giving way to the gentle blush of daybreak. Haven, under the glow of the rising sun, was a town transformed. Its people, once victims of a terrifying lunar event, were now standing stronger, their monstrous forms a fading nightmare. They had journeyed into the heart of fear and emerged stronger. The night of horror was ending, and in its place dawned a new day of understanding and resilience. The blood-red moon had revealed the monsters within, but in doing so, it had also illuminated the strength of the human spirit. Orion, standing in the observatory, watched as the new day broke. The battle was over, and they had prevailed. The night had been a crucible of fear, but it was the dawn that held the true reward, a victory over their own demons, a triumph of understanding over fear. They had faced the darkest part of their souls and survived. The moon had shown them their monsters, but it was the dawn that revealed their true strength. The night had been theirs, and so was the new day. The town of Haven had survived the night of the blood-red moon, forever changed, forever stronger. We've emerged from the shadowy depths of the moon's children, dear listeners, hearts pounding, breaths hitched. Tonight, we've journeyed through a world where the celestial turned sinister, where the very essence of fear took monstrous forms. But remember, in the heart of fear often lies the strength of understanding. As we depart, carry the echoes of this story into the stillness of the night. And remember, even under the blood-red moon, our true strength is found within us. Thank you for joining us for another spine-chilling episode of our scary stories. Until next time, when darkness falls and shadows dance, remember, every fear has a story. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.